Welcome to the Marketing B-Sides. I'm your host, Tom Hootman. This is the podcast where I guess we'll say everyone's a marketer and no one's pretending to have it all figured out. We're here to tell real stories from real people who've been in the industry for a long time, or maybe not in the industry whatsoever. Think of this as the stories you share your friends, but maybe think twice about posting to your followers. Today is a special day. Today is our very first guest. And for those of you who know me, who there are a few of you, you're going to hear this person's name and you're going to immediately roll your eyes and say to yourself, of fucking course, this is the first guest, because I am nothing if not shameless when it comes to who I want to talk to. And I'm really eager and excited to share this conversation with you. Today's guest is Jeff Allen. Jeff Allen, of course, is the CEO of the agency OuterBox. And you may or may not know this, but Jeff Allen and I worked together for a spell as well. Jeff and I first met in 2011 when we both worked at a little agency called Hand Up in Marketing here in Bloomington, Indiana. Jeff and I worked together for about a dozen years through an acquisition by Brain Labs, where we got to meet and work with some wonderful folks from all over the globe. And he eventually moved up the ranks to COO of North America, or NAMER, as we called it, and made the jump from COO to CEO. Oh, goodness, going on a year and a half-ish ago. He's a good friend of mine. He's one of my best friends. I've known him forever. He is the probably the easiest first guest to have, because there's probably, we could talk for 5-6 hours. We do talk for 5 or 6 hours, usually, now and again. So this intro is going to be a little longer because this is the first episode as well. The idea behind this podcast is we come together to share stories that we wouldn't normally share and really just talk about anything. I don't want it to be corporate, not really rehearsed. The thing I keep thinking up in my head is I've been on a lot of pitches. If you ever go on a pitch and you traveled and you're in an airport after the pitch, there's like this like great relief of like getting the pitch over with. Or say you have a big meeting and the meeting's over and you go to the bar afterwards. Those were always the most fun few hours before we boarded a flight after the pitch, when you kind of decompress and you talk about how things went, what went great, what was awful, and just share some really amazing stories. So the idea behind this is sharing some of those stories. We're not always going to talk to marketers per se, textbook marketers who work at an agency or in-house. There'll be a lot of that. But my firm belief is that everyone markets themselves in one way or another. So I want to bring people from various industries together to hear stories about how they've had to sell themselves and market themselves, and stupid shit they've seen, hopefully stupid shit they've done through the years to get where they are today. So one more note before I get into it, 2 special words of thanks. The first is to my amazing director of growth marketing, Elena Faree. She's the producer of this podcast. This would not be here today without her. She helped drive me forward from day one. She's been by my side. We refer to her as the Secretary of State here at Mixtape Digital. She's absolutely incredible, and I can't thank her enough for all she does. Thank you, Elena. And the second, I want to send a special shout out to Wes Rutenberg. Wes Rutenberg is he's a musician, singer, songwriter out of Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm a huge fan. I became a huge fan of the band United States 3, which was his band back in the mid-90s, because I'm really fucking old. And he was very gracious to allow us to use one of my favorite all-time United States 3 songs, Neighborhood Association, as the intro for our podcast. So thank you very much, Wes. Thank you very much, Elena. Thank you very much, listener. At this point, as I like to say, I'm going to shut up and let's jump into it. That's so official. We have like a countdown and everything.
I wasn't ready for that.
I was not ready for that either. And the beautiful thing is we can edit out all these like, oh, wow, look, you can you get a countdown. Neato.
Oh.
And then I took a walk midday to clear my head, and because it's beautiful out. It's 79 now, but it was gorgeous. And my first thought was, there's going to be one of these that we record. And Elena sends me the message like a day later that's like, I got really bad news. It's unusable for whatever reason.
Jeff was terrible.
There's like the audio didn't come over, or like something's going to happen, and it's going to
happen. We're
going to have to do reshoots, which is going to be phenomenal. So hopefully it's not this one, but Jeff.
The reshoots are what kills the budget, man. You got to watch it.
It's kind of almost killed my announcement video budget. To be honest, I was like, oh shit. And then I had to do, that's where this all happened back here, because I had to like
It's
stage
beautiful.
it here because I couldn't get back into farm. I could, but I'm Midwestern. I couldn't be like, oh, by the way, can I have the bar one more time?
Oh,
No.
can I maybe sort of have the bar, please? I'll clean up.
Because
I'll work the
Doug,
night shift.
Doug, who's amazing there, gave us the bar walk. He was there setting up their outdoor patio for the summer. And I felt bad because he was there all day. And there were a couple points where we were recording videos or doing camera work. And like, he was like, he would come in for a break and just be like Doug, go outside. You're making me nervous. Stop it.
That literally looked like Doug. You did a great impersonation.
Thank you. I hang out at that bar a lot, so I should be able to do a great impersonation. So, Jeff, least favorite CEO you've ever worked for, and why is it Jeremy Kornfeld?
Oh man, the worst.
No,
It's the hair. It's too
the hair.
good.
It's too good. It's just too good. Just too good. He's too smooth. I wanted to do that because I wanted to mention him so I can tag him in the like the post just to get a little rise out of him next time I catch up with him. But he's a good dude.
He's a good dude.
Yeah, definitely a good dude. One of the reasons why, and this is why everyone's rolling their eyes, is because you're the first guest for obvious reasons. We worked together for like 12 years, 12 plus years. And your story is interesting to me because number one, we're friends. You were my boss for a long time, which wasn't hard at all. And then you made a huge jump in your career. And I'm always fascinated, and we've talked about this a few times over drinks, but like it's something I want to dig into, is that you worked your way up at a company. You were the president, Hannafin, then SVP, COO of North America. And these were people you worked with for like a decade. So you were kind of like, Jeff, hey, it's Jeff. Day one, you go to OuterBox. You don't know a fucking soul. What's that transition like, taking on a new role at that level? Because it's not like the vast majority of us, like, you get a new job and they like put someone in charge of you who's like, here's where the coffee maker is and here's how you fill out your forms. You're like the CEO on day one. How do you jump into that? What was what was that like?
Yeah. It was definitely interesting, like you said. I mean, being at the same place for a really long time and being part of hiring almost everyone, I think everyone except for you at one point. Very different. I'll say we had an amazing leadership team. They made me feel incredibly welcome when I started. Very understanding that, exactly like you said, it was like, I'm used to a sheet that has this type of data on it. Do we have a sheet that has any type of similar data on it, or, a tool or whatever? And so I asked a lot of dumb questions and really kind of, got ramped up by them. So they were incredible. And I do think like probably one of the biggest shocks, culture shock, so to speak, was just realizing that trust doesn't transfer. So at the old place, if I did something, for the most part, I would like to think most people understood me well enough to be able to understand a little bit of what I might be thinking or how I acted in the past or what might have led to that decision. Even if it was a decision or a comment that maybe wasn't great, maybe give me the benefit of the doubt or something like that. And here I am, a whole group of people meeting for the very first time, and became very, very conscious of, shoot, they don't have that context. They don't know who I am. They haven't been part of previous decisions. So everything I do from this moment forward is all they have to, judge me, to use that word, but not necessarily negatively on. And so that was, I don't know, it was interesting. I don't know how to describe the sensation other than just an aha and super self-conscious and, how do I navigate this? But again, the team, so I went, the first couple months, really, I spent meeting people on the team and meeting clients. I met with a huge number of the team, and then in small groups with the rest. Was it predominantly one-on-one though? It was probably half and half. I wasn't able to meet everyone one-on-one, but probably met about half the team and in a one-on-one, and then the rest were small groups. And then I met with our, 20-ish clients or something like that during the time. And the thing that shocked's the wrong word, but the thing that surprised me when I walked away was just how much people cared. Mm-hmm. Like, it just oozed out of the team. They cared about the business. They cared about each other. They cared about me. They were really worried about my experience and everything like that. And so within a couple months, really quickly, I started feeling at home again and like, okay, these are people who, we're all in this together and we all care about each other and we're going to figure this out. Was there anyone who was like, so that's great, number one, because people like that tells you the culture's there, and there isn't like, there's this, like the trust isn't there, obviously, because you have to earn that, but there aren't like, you aren't picking up like open, like, here we go again, right? Because I think there was some stability even before somewhat. But was there anyone who you met with, and name them, and no kidding, anyone you met with who was like, listen, fucker,
I'm pissed, right? Like, who was like, you were kind of like, whoa, like this is hot out of the gates? Or were they most like as a CEO, did you feel like you got it's wonderful to meet you. We're excited to have you. Thank you so much. I work really hard. Bye.
I mean, there's certainly a lot of that, which was great too. There was one or two people who I would say it probably wasn't exactly like you described, but it was like, hey, I think you should know. I think you should
Yeah.
know some history here. I think you should know some context that no one else might give you. You know, I tremendously valued those conversations because oftentimes it was like, wow, how would I have known that that was a thing? And it
Hmm.
gives me some context on maybe what to focus on in those early days, but also maybe what to avoid. And some of it was just, it's hard to describe. It wasn't bad. It wasn't, this is wrong, or it wasn't, we're upset about this. It was just much more about, I really care about this business and I really care about the people here. And I've thought these things could be better, and it hasn't necessarily gone anywhere. And
That's
now as
good.
I feel there's an open door here to have a conversation that, you know, maybe goes differently than it had gone before. And so yeah, I really like that. There's one person, I'm not going to name him, but there's one person that comes to mind. He's amazing. He's a little bit grumpy, and I think he would admit to being a little bit grumpy. And I just know whenever I talk to him, I'm going to get real unvarnished truth, and he's not going to polish it up, but also not really embellish it. And I've stayed really close to him, I think, over the last year and a half or so. And oftentimes if this has gone better now, thank you. And this one now still isn't working or is now broken, and work on that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like an important part of it. It's like you had to find folks willing and kind of courageous enough to have those types of conversations. And then, like I said, going back to care enough to like want to try to make it better or different at least.
How long did you wait before you had your first like all hands?
It was quick. Might have been the first day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of that was timing. Like timing lined up such that there was a meeting scheduled, if I remember right. And so I joined it, and I think my very first meeting, I talked a lot, which I don't love to do, but I think I talked for like a half an hour and just laid out a little bit of my history and how I approach things and how I'm thinking about the business. Obviously, I didn't know it too well, so it wasn't like, you know, here's the vision and here's the pillars and, you know, here's everything we're going to do. But I was just trying to put myself, and I'd gone through similar transitions before, meeting a new person, meeting a new boss, and being like, okay. And so I thought a lot about what you sat on some presentations, maybe some things that didn't land. And it was like, I can avoid some of that.
Yeah.
But what did land? And to me, what landed a lot was like personalizing. Here's who I am as a person. Here's what I care about. Here's my interest. Here's how I approach, you know, agency life. Here's why I love agencies. I just talked a lot about that to try to ground some context.
Yeah. I asked it, you touched on it. I think you and I both did a lot of this because we've seen multiple changes in leadership, and we've been at that tier where you have teams that report to you, and there's a new boss. And I over empathize anyway. I mean, I can't watch Ben Stiller movies because they like may make me too like I get embarrassed for like the character. But like they get like one shot, you get like 1 hour, and you get like 20 minutes of that to make an impression. And it's incredible to me how, number one, people can be pretty spot on, but how wildly off they can be. And I would talk to someone after a town hall, and they would be like, I don't like them. And you're like, what don't you like about that person? Like, I don't know. They just, I felt like they talked around the issues. And I'm like, well, it's like day 28, right? Or day 1. And then someone else, and then like 28 minutes later would be like, what a great town hall. Like, I really felt like that was like a fireside chat. That was great. So much of I felt like our jobs became having to provide context and not PR, because I think the people out there would be like, he's fucking PR hack. But it's like, no, like context, because we have the opportunity to meet this person before, and you don't want anyone to get judged over 20 minutes in a town hall, and everyone has to make snap judgments because it's your livelihood's at stake. And especially in agency land, where agencies flex out and then contract and then move, and we're at the mercy of where our clients are going sometimes and their acquisitions. You worry about your job. Everyone should worry. Like, they're worried, right? And so that people have to make these snap judgments, which is why I asked, like, how soon after you started did you do it? And then having that team, like a good leadership team, it's like you said we've talked about, like, great people, like be able to like provide context. Because, I mean, for context, how many employees do you have now?
We're around 230.
230. So like, yeah, at 230, you have to like deliver the message from the mountaintop, and then have people that help provide context into the, hey, like, here's what that means to you.
Yeah, you mentioned like the PR thing, and I think both like it's true, although it could have a negative connotation. The same is true for politics, by the way. Like corporate politics or whatever can have a very bad connotation. But one of the things I learned as I've grown and worked at larger agencies and businesses is like politics is just a thing. Like it's part of just making relationships and understanding motivations and, you know, coming to alignment. But on the PR thing, I think, you know, what you just described, I think is it sounds like you saw part of your role or our role to set other people up for success. And I think in a healthy environment, a healthy culture, most people are walking around all day kind of thinking about how do they help other people in that business be successful, because they understand they get that connection to, if they're successful, I'm successful. And I think sometimes in less great cultures, it actually starts feeling a bit the opposite, or it's, you know, I don't know what's going on, or I just met the person too. And so I think it's a sign. I think it's a strong sign. If people are walking around wanting other people to be successful and making sure to focus on the things that will help them do that, that's huge.
We talked about this over drinks recently about the things we learned. It's like in the moment, you don't realize you're learning, or the lessons that are positives that in the moment, because you're kind of getting feedback, or you're getting asked to do, like you're getting pushed in a direction that's uncomfortable for you, that you're like, this is bullshit, I hate this, right? That in hindsight, or like, hey, like, I don't know what this means. And in hindsight, you look back on it and you're like, no, like, that's really great. That was really great. I love that. For me, one of the things that initially felt like, is this real, or is this because I didn't have trust? Is this real, or is this just a phrase on the wall? Was assume positive intent, which was true. There's no nefarious, like, that's a Mark Caseyism, the mustache thing.
Mark Casey, call out. I love it.
Right? Like it's some saying or some quote from a movie, like from way back. It might actually have Ben Stiller in it, to be honest, where he says, there's no good guys and there's no bad guys. There's just a bunch of guys. Like there's like this, people tend to like fight or flight kicks in and they kind of feel like they have to choose one or the other. And it's like, no, like that's all you. Like there's no one out to get you.
Yeah, I still use that one all the time because, and I think you mentioned this, but it can be weaponized, right? Like someone can be, you know, being mean and say, well, you're just not assuming positive intent.
Yeah.
But I think the reality is most people, most of the time, are just trying to do the best that they can. And if you put a lens on of assuming that, like even if it's something you don't understand or feel badly about, you can quickly go to curiosity about, you know, maybe what am I hearing wrong or different, or why am I feeling this way, or what did you mean by that, or whatever it is.
Weaponizing the value statements happens in every organization.
It happens.
Happens in everyone. Like, yeah.
Certainly memeing them. Like memeing them, I'm okay with. Like I find that funny.
Yeah.
Weaponizing becomes a little dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's a very much of a bias for action, my friend. And you're just kind of like, are we really going to go there in this meeting? Okay. I want to talk more about specifics, backing away from it. Thank you for that. Cause like that transition you've made is like really unique. And also it helps me personally because people are always asking me, how's Jeff doing? And how was that transition? So there, I'm just going to send the link to this and say, first 10 minutes, you get it, go. I want to talk about fun stuff. The pitches, right? So we've both been on a million different pitches and we've seen pitches go really well and really god fucking awful. Tell me about, this is a bit of a change from some of the questions I sent you. Like the pitch you felt went horribly that we ended up winning, or you ended up winning, that you were like, how in the world did they pick us? Because we fucked that up completely.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that I have a great answer. I'll give you one that we almost tried to back out of. Remember, I feel like I mentioned the name here. Elena can just edit it out if not.
Just beep it. Or not.
Protect Your Bubble.
Oh, Steven, yeah.
You remember Bubble and Squeak? I actually wasn't even in the pitch itself, but was around it, knew what was going on. And I just remember this was like 2012, maybe 2013. And it was a big account. It was a huge brand in the UK at the time. And we had Sam Owen, our resident Brit, who was, you know, oh my gosh, these guys are amazing. I know them. I think he was a customer, if I remember right, but certainly knew him. And so we're pitching a big opportunity for us. And we get into the account and start doing the audit. And we're like, this is just so bad that we can't even audit this. Like, I think we might even been charging them for the audit. If I
think it was
right.
a paid audit. It was like $5,000 or something just to paid audit.
Yeah. And we were just like, we can't in good conscience do this. Like, this is like really, I don't remember what it was, but it was basically like really easy fix, which is like burn it down and start over, and we're not going to charge you money.
That'll be
So,
$5,000, please.
yeah, so I think Rob Boyd at the time called them, if I remember right. It might have been you, but it might have been Rob, and we're just like,
Might have been Kayla, actually. I think it was her deal.
like Kayla even, yeah, and then just like, hey, we feel bad. We don't think we should charge you for this, and they ended up, being like, okay, fine, we'll just hire you to actually do the work, and turned into a great engagement.
And it was. And at the time, sorry to interrupt you, you're like, oh, now they're just going to, we'll just hire you. And you're like, well, that's a giant fucking red flag right there. Like,
That too.
frick,
Little
you walk in and
concerning.
they're
No,
like,
we're telling you this is terrible. This is not going
this
well.
is awful. Thank God you're here. Here's
We're
a
trying
check.
to
When
give you
can
your money
start?
back.
Yeah. No, yeah.
But no, great client. I still talk to the I think he was the CMO or CEO at the time. So yeah, I don't know. That was that was one that always sticks out in my mind and went differently than maybe I thought. What about you, man? What's one that went differently for you?
Oh, that's an easy one. University of Chicago. Yeah, that was Danny's pitch, and it was Danny, Kayla, and I went up for that one. I think he flew in and we picked him up at the airport. I mean, a prestigious university. It was a flagship client. You really want this one. We're usually at a boardroom, or we're like in some random conference room, like conference room B, that's named after like a suburb or a sports team or something stupid. And they're like, here's the room you're going to be in. And it was literally a lecture hall, like from the Paper Chase, which is a show in the early 80s, folks, that had like the tiered desks, like not, because when I go to IU, like you go to a classroom, like it's normally just a room with tables. This was like dark wood, like I should be operating on someone and there should be a bright light above me. And then they handed us a lapel mic, and they like turned it on. So it's like kind of like I am right now, where I can hear I have a monitor. I'm like, all you can hear is yourself, and your immediate thoughts like, shit, like this is kind of crazy. And then they're like, we only have one lapel mic, so you're going to have to hand it off to each other, which immediately kind of was like, well, now I want us all to have them. And we get in, and they like, people like literally file in. I think they kind of like, it was kind of like, hey, everyone, there's donuts in the break room. It was kind of like, hey, there's a pitch. So there were like 15 people. And I was like, I don't know, not met any. I don't know who's the chancellor, the president, if this person is like just a random who won some coffee or whatnot. And we go through the pitch, and one component of the pitch was experience with international search. And I think it was like Baidu or like one of those like random search engines that was, you know how this works. It's like a tiny, tiny piece that really doesn't impact your work at all. And it's not going to it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And also like we can figure it out. But to them, it was like make or break. They have to have experience here because this $8 of our multi-million-dollar budget is going to go to this. And it's like, it was like a sticking point. And it didn't go, like the 2 or 3 slides on that did not go well. I mean, like dead air, no questions. They were like this. And it was like, I stopped the pitch, because then it went to me, or like it went to Kayla from Danny, or Danny to Kayla, and then to me. And I was like, fuck it. I was like, hey, can we go back to the international thing? Because when we delivered those slides just now, it felt like that didn't land and didn't go well, or they had more questions about it. So tell me what happened. And then even then, we kind of talked about it a little bit more, but it was like, you could very clearly tell the vibe I got was, no, this isn't the agency. Like, it didn't wow us. So we finished the pitch. Everyone files out of the theater, and I still laugh when I think about this. We get in the elevator, and the elevator closes, and it's the 3 of us. And it was like Mad Men. Danny Frisha in the middle, who just always looks to the bright. He's like, I think that went pretty well. And I was like, I could not disagree more. That did not go well at all. Like, we bombed in the middle on the international piece. It was a huge hanging point for them, sticking point. And then we got it. It was like a week later. Like, congratulations, you won it. And I was like,
I remember the call after. I think you have a great memory, because I think you described that story exactly like that.
It's
immediately
seared
after
into my brain, because I'm on a lapel mic with these people staring at me from up here, and I'm like bombing.
But not to toot your horn, but that's such a brilliant move to go back. And I think that like people get too in their heads on pitches sometimes, and it's like this polished artifact that needs to like be this perfect and we're going to go just like we rehearsed it or whatever it was. Most of the time, if you've been on the other end of those, like it's a boring 2-hour meeting or whatever it is where you're
One of
just
five.
hoping one of
Boring.
5 of those. Yeah, which is crazy. And so someone that actually breaks the mold a little bit and is paying attention and notices the reaction and actually like maybe leans into some of the cringiness, one's probably refreshing, and then 2 at a minimum, it's memorable and it allows you to actually address whatever the issue is in the room. Like, I don't know. Bravo, because I think a lot of people would have just kept going
Kept
along.
going and hoping that it went well. Yeah, it's you're right. Like, I think on the other side, I've never been on the other side. I've always been agency side. But talking to clients where we win pitches and then we hear like, so tell me, once you win it and they sign and we're good, we're like, okay, like occasionally they'll like, hey, this is why you won. And then you kind of, if you have a good relationship, like, so tell me about the pitches. And everyone says the same thing. Like everyone said the exact same thing. And some people had placemats with like their stuff and some people had balloons. Like everyone has their like little pitch magic thing they try to do. And the reason you won is because of, and it's always one little idiosyncrasy that you don't even pick up at the moment that like makes someone go, that's interesting.
It reminds me of that intercontinental airline that we pitched where we had pitched him and lost. And
I mentioned this last night on a phone call. Anyway.
Yeah. No, and then a year later they call up and say, okay, we're gonna go pitch again. Can you be here next week in person? And we were like, I love airlines and we were always down for a challenge. And so we're like, of course. And so we booked it. We had Umbro pick us up at the airport because it would save on a rental car because he was in the area. And so he picks us up at the airport, drives us to the meeting. He has no, if I remember right, no meaningfully speaking part in the actual conversation. We pitch in, it goes well. I mean, not maybe amazing, but it goes well. And he drives us back to the airport, I'm pretty sure same day, and we go get on a flight and fly back home. And then we win it. And then, years later, I think it was a year later, 2 years later, we were just talking and it was like, why did you pick us? And like all that. And they're like, well, funny story. The reason we didn't pick you the first time was because you were in Bloomington, Indiana. And we were uncomfortable giving our budget to folks that they weren't there. And when you guys showed up with, when you showed up quick, that was a test. We were like, if we had to get them out here, could they get out here quickly? And it was like, well, past that. And then 2, when you showed up with this person who happened to live in Boston, we were like, okay, there's at least a door we can go knock on if there's a problem. And so to your point, like this, the thing that we did to save a little bit of money is the thing that actually led to us landing the account. Originally, the thing that led us not landing the account was something we didn't even know was an objection.
Yeah. Do you think, like, how much do you think in hindsight? Because for the uninitiated, Hennepin, where we started, had an office in Bloomington, Indiana, but was it like 60% of the staff at one point was remote, full remote?
Yeah.
And we talked about getting a second office, and we always thought we'd convinced ourselves that didn't matter, and then learned, I think, in the last few years when you and I worked together, that does matter. How much do you think that held us back? Not having, and it's the incentive for agencies to do stupid shit like having a PO box.
It's a good question. I don't know. So you're jogging my memory. When we had that conversation with the airline and uncovered all of that, it was because I was doing fact finding on opening another office somewhere. We're trying to figure out if it helped. We were trying to answer this question that you're asking. And so we surveyed a bunch of clients, talked directly to a bunch and even to some non-clients and everything like that. And that came out of that conversation. And then there was another bit about overarching, people were like, I don't really care. I'm not probably going to go to your office or whatever, but it is really helpful to have someone in my time zone or someone local, even if it's not someone who's on my account every day. And so we started, if you remember, we started kind of leaning into that more. If we were pitching a client, we'd try to find the person who was remote, who was closer to them and have them on the account or whatever.
Bodybuilding.com was one we did that with.
Perfect example. And so I don't feel like it was all or nothing. I don't feel like it was like going to be this, if we had an office in New York or Chicago or something like that, it would have been drastically different. But of course it would have been, there's just connections you can make, relationships you can build, confidence you can give executive decision makers that, not having that can impact you. So I think it matters. And again, this was like pre-COVID, right?
Pre-COVID.
Everyone else is remote too. And so we were really kind of on the leading edge of that. Nowadays, I still think it can help, but I do think it's a bit of a different world.
Yeah. A different world that people are trying to move back to the old world, though.
To some extent, all the coworkers are saying they're miserable who are doing it. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Always, yeah, fascinating. We're not that you asked, but like we're not like we have offices. We have 3 offices, and folks go to them. And people are in them every day. But we have no mandate, and we have people in like 30 different states or whatever. And it's just it's more important to me we figure out in this remote world how to stay connected and build meaningful connections and collaborate together than it is to figure out how to shove people into an office and make them collaborate.
Slack fatigue is real, right? Like, I mean, it's like just all day. Like, it just takes so much more effort. And it's why one of the things you were talking about, I think you said you created the How to Work with Jeff doc, right?
Did
Yeah, I have one, and I scoffed at
you have a
them.
How to Work with Jeff doc?
Yeah, it's
You
weird.
send it with the people when they text
Hey,
you.
heads up, everybody. He's an asshole. Prepare for your nickname.
It's true.
But it's like I created one. And one of the reasons why was like little things like this is one of my pet peeves. Slack, when someone's like, "Hey Tom," and it's like just jump into it. Like
Finish the sentence.
finish, just go. Hey Tom, dash go. Because there's different people communicate different ways, and like when you're remote, like it is hard. I still run into it, so I've gotten much more in the past few months here, being more comfortable about. You want to jump in at Brain Labs? It's always let's jump in a meet. And everyone jumped in a meet every time. Very, very rarely was it a phone. Never was it a phone call. And at the time, at least, everyone was still remote. But here, I've got fractional people and people in different areas. People just starting, and some of them are phone call people. Some of them are text people, some are Slack people, some are email, some are Google Meet. And I've had to get used to people being like, "Hey, do you got a minute?" Sure. And I go to open a meet and send it to them, and my phone rings. And I'm like, I was like, "What the fuck's that noise? Oh, my phone is ringing." Like that actually happens. It bothered me at first because I'm not a phone guy, but now I love it because I'm working full remote. I can put my headphones on and go for a walk and actually get fresh air, which is like, why didn't I do this more often? Because I'd had to walk down a hallway and down some stairs. Yeah, it's just a different mindset. We've talked about, and I think this is why I joked about the PO boxes. As we've started to grow, we're already thinking about, okay, like we have a couple of people who work from co-working spaces. At a certain point, mixtape, I want to take care of that. And then do we create these clusters where people can come together in a co-working space? And maybe that area grows to another point, a second apron, if you're an NBA fan, where, okay, we've got 15 people here and the co-work space is expensive as hell. Let's get a small office. And it leads me to ask you, like, you have people you said that still go in the office. Obviously the minority, right? Like there's very few, but like, why do you think they go in just to be around people? Is that just it?
It's a mixed bag. We have a guy, so we have offices in Houston, Akron, and Rochester, Minnesota. And Houston's kind of our largest presence with about 100 people in that area. And whenever I go to that office, I just know this guy's going to be there. And I asked him that question last time. I was like, "Hey, you were always here. What is it?" And he was just straight up like being in an office, like being out of my house, like being here. And I'm like, "Are there days you're the only person?" And he's like, "Usually not the only person, but certainly bare bones." And so it wasn't to connect or collaborate. It was just literally to be out of his house. But there's other groups that go to that office in groups to work together one day a week or whatever, who are working on projects together. And they go specifically to collaborate and have brainstorms and do their leadership meetings and stuff like that in those days. So I think the motivation's a bit different for the person. I always went to an office and I loved it, but part of it was I know myself and it's easy for me to get distracted and it's easy for me to get hungry. And so if I'm right next to my kitchen and, I have everything in my house, I've really had to have some discipline and build some discipline to focus better.
Physically build a door, right?
Literally took our front door and put it on our library so that I can work in here.
I've seen it. It actually looks great, everyone. It's not like, what do you mean? Just like I took a front door. It's not like
Well, everyone knows Lori and knows she's amazing. So
she's not gonna fuck around with that. That's
Yeah,
gonna be legit no matter what.
no, I was the one saying you're doing what? This is ridiculous. It's going to look terrible. But no, actually, it has the door knocker on it and everything. It's awesome.
You've worked with multiple PE firms involved in agencies, and I've talked to a lot of people because we've hired a few roles, and I've got a few fractional, like 1099 people. And one thing that I've been kind of marveling at is that people tend to hate PE firms. They have a really bad reputation, right? Toys R Us is a great example, right?
The classic.
The classic example. Classic. Grace K. You've had success though, and you've kind of I feel like from at least my perception, there's someone out there who's just like, no, he hasn't. Like you've been able to bridge the gap between like success, like managing a successful PE relationship, but also growing the business and ensuring that there's like a there's a fine line. Like you walk that balance. What do you think makes a good agency with PE backed financing, and where do you see it going?
I think I've brought back, you might remember in our town halls, the triangle of people, finance, and clients. I talk about it a little different now, but I talk about our people retention, I talk about our client retention, and I talk about our performance to budget every month when we meet as a team. And we talk about it, just for context, in terms of you got to find balance between those three things. If you over focus on making your coworkers, your teammates really happy, well, that may come at the sacrifice of clients, because you may say, hey, don't worry, that client's upset, but don't return their phone call. You have other things to do, and don't stress about it. And, you lose clients like crazy. Or you may say you want these benefits and perks, and so we're going to invest in them, but then the budget goes haywire, so on and so forth. And so a lot of how I think about decision making and how I think about the long-term vision of a business is balancing those three things. No decision you're going to balance all three in one, but the whole of all the decisions you make, bring those things into balance. And I think that's 100% aligned with what PE firms would think about buying or investing in professional service firms. They understand you got to take care of the client, you got to have people to deliver the work, and the budget has to make sense. And so in similar conversations to them, we're also talking about the balance of those things and how they impact where we're going and what we're doing. And I think there's inherent alignment. My experience with, I've worked with 2 closely and 3 total, and different PE firms, and I found them all great. I found them all very supportive. I found them great at thinking through problems and opportunities. I find them really interesting because they often are working with tons of different portfolio companies, and so they can bring in perspective and context that you might not have. And so I've found it really great. I think a lot back to the early COVID days, like literally the week 2 weeks into, okay, the world's getting shut down. And one of the first things that helped us understand or have context for how bad it was going to be in the short term was PE folks saying, hey, we're sitting in board meetings, we're sitting in management meetings. We can tell you companies, the first thing they're talking about is pulling marketing budget. Why would they be marketing right now?
Yeah.
And they're going to have to save costs and so on and so forth. So you guys might not know that's happening yet. Week 1, everything may look fine, but we are telling you those decisions are being made. In week 2, week 3, week 4, you're going to start hearing from clients. And that was exactly what happened. And luckily we had already kind of started preparing for that to some extent. So there's some cool context and knowledge sharing and perspective that it's hard to get, I think, in other ways. As far as like the future, I think there's going to continue to be a lot of investment in digital agency space. There's, 50,000 agencies, as we've talked about before.
Good tagline. Thanks for mentioning.
Anytime there's
50,001 since April 14th.
50,001 agencies out there, and like 10,000 clients that we all want to work with.
Yep.
You're ripe for consolidation to bring that down and for investment. So I think it's going to continue to happen. But like I said, I've found it net positive and it's really enjoyable.
And that's good. I think that you're right. Anytime you talked about the triangle, there's a different triangle of like the people, the agency leadership, and the PE firm, right? These 3 parties. One gets introduced, and I do think there's a tendency, because all 3 are never in the room at the same time. PE firm, rightfully so, is like, I don't want to be like, just run it. So they become a bit of this like boogeyman, or this like anything, going back to assuming positive intent. Anything that rolls out that's like a change that could be perceived as difficult, or something that people don't want to do, or a change that's negative to the agency, you have to change a policy or how you work. There's a tendency for everyone to go, PE, here we go. And it's hard. It's got to be hard for an agency exec to stand there and be like, no, like that's not what this is, because it's so easy to be like, yeah, I mean, let me tell you, we're all in this together. Do our best. And it's
nail on the head, man. I've heard that many different times at different places before, and drives me crazy because, like you said, it's almost never actually the PE firm. Like they don't make decisions, and I don't mean that bad, but like that's not why they're there. They're not there to manage the business. They're there to make sure that the business is being managed and that what's going on makes sense. And so there's very few, if any, decisions that the PE folks are like making on behalf of the company. It's advice, guidance, and support, as I find it. But it's really easy. It's really easy to point a finger because, like you said, they're not in the room. And I've seen that, and I've seen that create negativity within a culture. And it's just like, it's not fun. I spend a lot of time saying that's not fun or that's not interesting. It's not fun or interesting to me to like blame other people for anything, no matter what it is. And so I try, and for better or worse, I don't know if this is the right way. I just try to own things. Like the number of times I say, this is my decision. I want you to know I decided this. And I want you to know I'm the person to love or hate because of wherever we're going with whatever the decision is. And for one, it's more empowering and interesting to be the person willing to stand behind, have conviction behind the decisions that are being made. And two, it's like, it's more helpful. So it's like, so don't go, worry or gossip or talk to other people about this. Come to me. I'm right here.
Yeah.
You can talk about it if you disagree, or if you agree. I'd love to hear happy things too. But I don't know. I find it much more interesting to actually have real conversations about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big theme today about like context and like for the right mentality and assuming positive intent. And it always reminds me of when Conan O'Brien had the Tonight Show, and then like they kicked him off the Tonight Show. And that was like the whole thing where he was locked in for like 90 days. So he just got crazier and crazier and did more wild stuff.
And how to spend the budget.
How are you going to fire? You can't fire me, so we're going to do whatever we want because you already fired me, but you gave me 90 days to see myself out. And it was hilarious. And like there was like this very much like pro, like Team Coco, like he's right, they're wrong. And he was. I'm taking the side, that's the side. But also, like his last little monologue he did where he talked about, I thought it was amazing. I think about it still to this day. Like he was like, don't get pessimistic, right? And don't become caustic. And don't let that mentality kind of grind you down to turning into a negative person, because that is like ick in a fish tank. Like it really does kind of like seep into your soul. And I don't think you realize it. And I've worked with people, you and I both have, who let that kind of envelop them, and they're just not fun, right? They're never having fun because they're kind of like in this state of constant fight, always, which is a tough place to be.
I think that I would have a lot of empathy for that, exactly like you just said. I think that is a tough place to be. And I believe people's experience. So I believe that is their perception, that experience of what's going on. And thus it feels very real to them and everything like that. But exactly to your point, it's like if they can work through that by themselves or with support, with mentorship or whatever that looks like, on the other side of that is the opportunity that you can see, or the more interesting thing to focus on, or the thing that you can impact. You can't control some of it, but you can other pieces and all of that. I don't know. Like it's like I kind of get it, but at the same time, I love the optimism, and I love the belief that things could be better and the ability to impact that. Again, I think a lot about empowerment, and so I want to focus on the stuff that I feel like I can impact, and if it's something I can impact, then I try to let it go and shift my focus to the things that I'm empowered to tackle.
I've had many a coach and a couple therapists who've really worked on that with me. We're like, hey, like you got to focus on what you can control every single day, because it will eat you up. And it's interesting because I had our CEO recently who was like, he referred to it as like baggage on a plane. You just got to take a carry on. You've got to stop checking the baggage every single time, because I was in that mode where if I got a new boss or a new CEO, I felt like I had to get them up to speed on my story. Like, let me tell you, right? Sit down, kid, right? Like, here's everything I've been through, and you need to know my history and like and it was like, with each new person, they're like, that was like fucking years ago, man. What are you grinding gears over? You gotta let that shit go.
Good for you, man. That's a huge thing that you were able to kind of work through that. And, I can remember some conversations we had over
You and I had a couple of them,
time. So I think that's awesome, man. And you're right. I think that, I think it's easy to kind of hold on to that stuff. But as I said, more interesting to find a way past it.
We've got a few minutes left. I want to ask you at least one more question, and it's more like advice, because I'm realizing my running joke has been like, I have an amazing team at Mixtape, phenomenal people. And I joke that like, I should have stayed closer to like the entry level and 1 to 2 year people. Cause everyone I talk to and everyone I know all these amazing people, but they're all like senior directors and up, and we work together, right? Or they've moved on and they have 10 years experience now, and they're pretty expensive. But like, if someone's out there with 1 or 2 years experience and they're like on your team or they're in an agency with 200 or 2,000 employees, like what would you tell them? Like what advice would you give them on like, and you can't say just do great client work because that may not get noticed, but like how do they make their mark and like find like create those chance opportunities to shine and move up?
Yeah. It's a big question. I'll give you like 3 answers.
Sweet.
The first is, if you do great client work, I'll usually hear about it, even at a big agency, even with 200 and whatever clients. I read our net promoter score feedback from clients. I get emails and have meetings with them. Team leads and more senior folks, call out when they see great work being done.
That's really good.
People, it's not to say every piece of good work or every person that's doing good work I hear about, but like I hear about a lot of people doing great work every day through all these different ways. And I try to acknowledge it, but can't necessarily always. And so even if you're not hearing from someone on that specific great work, like just know, like there's a bit of trust the process that if you're doing great work, like it shows up and it's obvious. Piece of that and part of why I see that is be someone who showcases other people's great work. I never get tired of getting a note from someone that said, hey, I want to brag on so-and-so. They were just on this call and it went so great, or this person helped me through this problem, or whatever it is. And it's like 2 dopamine hits in one. It's the dopamine hit of like, you heard about a person who's doing great work, which is amazing. And then second of all, someone else cared enough and also is doing great work and highlighting someone else's work. So there's a double hit of all of that. And I think really highly of people who are invested in other people's success and want to share that with me. And so that's a big piece. So, do the great work, acknowledge other people's great work. And then the third is something that will always 3 things that will always be true for every agency. And this is in the age of AI, only the more important. It's 3 things that will always be really valuable if you do. First is subject matter expertise. Whatever you're doing, if you're in sales, if you're in SEO or PPC, if you're in finance, whatever it is, be a student of your craft and really care about it and learn and study it and know it better than anyone else. Relationships with clients. It's something that you have always been phenomenally well, and I try to emulate very poorly. Build relationships, care, get to know them, be interested, and come through for them. Come through for them in tough spots. Listen to them and act and, course correct if need be. But relationships with clients and, of course, coworkers goes a really long way. And then reputation within the industry. So if you're 1 or 2 years, that's maybe blogging, maybe sharing some thought leadership pieces with the marketing team, getting on LinkedIn and sharing thoughts, build a bit of a reputation in the industry. And if you do those things, AI doesn't replace any of those 3 things. In fact, like something like expertise only becomes more important because you need to tell, is it hallucinating or is it not? Or is the output of it good or is it not good? So these things are only kind of reinforced as our industry changes.
The second note you made about showcasing other people's work is, to me, that like I hadn't considered that. And I think it immediately made me think of the people on my teams through the years who were really great. They trusted, again, another theme, trust. They trust that if they showcase others' work, that's also illustrative of their impact. Like the impact you have as like a director or a group account director or a VP isn't just look at what I did. It's like your job is not to do the work, it's to ensure the work gets done. And the people who had the strongest teams that were cross-functional, that were pushing them out of the way, were the best leaders. But you have to trust that if you ever work in an org where you do that and they promote that person and fire you, then you're very lucky, because that's a horrible organization to work for, and that should never, ever happen. So there's an element of that, like that's worth its weight in gold. And that's it's subject matter expertise in its own right. And I do think, if I can call it, like there's an area where agencies miss, like they double down on subject matter expertise. And this is, I'm biased as a client guy who hasn't been a subject matter expert, someone who's really been great with clients and teams. I think there's a tendency to over-index subject matter expertise and not recognize management and development and client relationships as its own subject matter. Because I've seen brilliant people who are smarter than me. There's a lot of them out there who biffed it on client calls where I'm like, all you got to do is make friends for a living. Like, how is this hard? But then I don't take, that's me, again, being Midwestern and downplaying like how hard it is to like be yourself and be authentic and just.
I was going to say, man, you're great at it, because I mean, you are great at it. And I struggle with it, to be honest. Like I'm awkward. I always think of on The Big Short, where very early in the movie, Michael Burry is talking about how his wife says he's awkward and needs to like ask more questions or get to know people better. And so it cuts to a scene of him interviewing someone and he said, "That's a nice haircut. Did you do it yourself?" And I'm like, that's a question I think I would ask, like in all honesty. I am not great at small talk. I'm not always comfortable with it, but I can say whenever I've dared to venture out of my comfort zone and do that, it's almost always been a positive thing.
You beat yourself up too much. And that, I mean, the track you've been on, the success you've had, I think speaks volumes to that. And I think one of the things I've always appreciated about you is that the level of development, it shifts. Like you were developing me as a leader 11 years in, just as much as you were 2 years in, and the things I learned. So almost like as you moved up the ladder, I felt like you were always kind of reaching back and teaching me the lessons and acknowledging the things that I was great at, or you felt that I was great at. And then, the shout out I always give too, to like, you were always telling me, but we were so close for so long that I didn't believe you. I was like, it's bullshit. Like, he's just my friend, right? Jeremy Kornfeld actually pulled me aside and was like, why are you trying to sound like everyone else? You're not a marketer. I'm not a marketer. Your job is to communicate and build the relationship and just be yourself. So just be yourself. You have the easiest job here. Just do it. And that was like a lesson that sank in with me immediately, because we talked about earlier, like the pitches and how I suck at pitches. I'm not great at pitches because it's like a Broadway show. There's 10 people, there's talk track, there's like remembering your lines and memorizing them, but delivering them, but not sounding like you deliver them. And then and I just couldn't get comfortable in that environment. And people were like, why are you so like freaked out? And I was like, I'm overthinking it. But whereas like a conversation like this or like a small pitch, I'm just like looser about it when I don't practice, to the point even that there were 2 announcement videos for Mixtape Digital, and Elena, we had to do reshoots, and I did them here without Elena in the room. And Corey and I recorded them, and he was like, first one's great, second one's great, they're both awesome. And the first one, I'd memorized my lines. And then the second, he was asking me the interview questions that Elena had asked before, and I was just answering them. And Elena was like, that second one is snacks better because you didn't memorize anything. And goes back to like, as I've gotten more comfortable doing video content and stuff like this, like the one take Tom, like I don't care anymore. Like it's been 2 months and I'm already like, fuck it. It works. Print it.
Well, it does work, man. You're doing great.
Thank you.
I love watching it. I'm super impressed and really happy for you, man.
Stop it. It's a love fest.
I know it.
Jeff, thank you very much for being the first guest. It means the world to me. I really appreciate it. You're awesome, dude.
A pleasure. And same to you, dude.
We'll have you on many, many times, but only when other guests cancel.
I
You're
hope
gonna
so.
be like,
I'll have my cocktail next time.
You better have your cocktail, because I'm a screwdriver in. It'll be one of those things where I'm like, I need you today at 2 p.m. We got to do another podcast. It'll be like a Tonight Show when like they would call in the guest host like to come in and do it.
Just hang out in the background and be ready when you need me, dude.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.